Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. After years of waiting, people from our region who were wrongly convicted as part of the post office scandal have been told they'll receive £600,000 in compensation.
But there's no figure that's going to compensate for what I've been through, but they should wait a bit and give us exactly what we're asking for.
We'll have all the details and reaction on this breaking story. Also tonight...
Leadmill! Save them! Leadmill!
A licensing hearing takes place in Sheffield to determine the future of the iconic city venue, the Leadmill. A prestigious international triathlon weekend is set to take place in Niddledale next year. And the Leeds Bear Hunt comes to a spectacular end ahead of a fundraising sell-off.
And it's looking distinctly autumnal this week with spells of wet and windy weather. I'll be back later in the programme with a look ahead at the week.
Hello, thanks for your company this evening. First tonight, in the last hour, it's been confirmed that post office workers who were wrongly convicted of theft and false accounting during what became known as the widest miscarriage of justice in UK history are to be offered £600,000 in compensation. More than 700 branch managers were given criminal convictions when faulty accounting software made it look like money was missing from their sites. 86 of them, including some from our region, have had those convictions overturned. David Rhodes joins us now with the details. David, this has been a long time coming for so many people, hasn't it?
This has been a scandal in the making for over 2 decades. In every corner of our region, there is a postmaster who has been wrongly convicted. There was faulty software, it was called Horizon software, and it made it look like these postmasters were illegally taking money out of the system. Now, some of these postmasters were sent to jail, others were financially ruined. The government today has announced its compensation scheme. North Yorkshire MP Kevin Hollinrake and Business Minister says these people will be able to claim £600,000 if they've been wrongly convicted. The Minister himself admitting that isn't always enough, though.
So for some people it won't be enough, of course. If you've suffered, if you spent time in jail, if you lost your house, if your marriage has failed, all those things, if those things have happened to you, of course, no amount of money will ever be enough, of course. But we're saying, we know some people, 60 people have passed away waiting for compensation. So we don't want that situation. We want to get that money out the door.
Given that this has been described as the biggest miscarriage of justice in British legal history, you may ask, has anyone been held legally accountable for this? The answer in one word is no. There has been a public inquiry that's been carried out looking into this. That will report next year.
David, thank you. Well, David mentioned that some of those wrongly convicted postmasters spent time in prison before they were finally vindicated, including Harjinder Batoy from Chesterfield. I spoke to Harjinder earlier. I asked him about the impact that this has had on his life and his family's lives too.
Post office people have completely destroyed our lives. You know, they lied so much over the years, they're saying there's nothing wrong with the Horizon system. They've destroyed our lives. There's nothing going to replace that. And it's always in the back of my head.
£600,000 has been announced by the government today to be paid to every wrongfully convicted postmaster. Is that enough?
Definitely not enough. There's going to be a lot of people out there who are owed a lot more than £600,000. They're just doing it so they don't have to pay out anymore. They think a lot of people have had enough under pressure. They just want to put closure to it now. But I'm not going to put closure to it. I will carry on till the paid is full.
You spent 18 months in prison, you went bankrupt, you lost property. The government does admit that it isn't enough to compensate all of that. But what would be enough for you, Harjinder? What do you put on it?
I want somebody convicted on the post office side who hid everything, all the evidence, and lied in court as well. They relied on Horizon and they even knew there were problems with it, but they still lied in court. Definitely want somebody convicted. They destroyed my life. I want them to have it, the same thing.
In monetary terms, Harjinder, just focusing on what the government has said today, How much would be enough for you? Are we talking $1 million, $2 million? What price do you put on 18 months in prison and the impact that you say it's had on your life?
I really don't know. I've not even thought of a figure. I just want a fair figure. Once our solicitors have processed it all, whatever they come out with, that's going to be fair for me.
The government says that they're offering this so that it can take the trauma out of what has already been a long drawn-out process. What is your message to other postmasters?
Well, they need to carry on fighting. We've been fighting for all these years. If it's another year or 2 years, just carry on fighting and get what we deserve.
Harjinder, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next tonight, protesters gathered in Sheffield today as a meeting was held to decide the future of the city's iconic music venue, the Leadmill. I'm sure you recognise that sign. It comes after months of bitter and very public dispute between the man who runs the nightclub, who's run it for 28 years actually, and the company that took ownership of the building in 2017. The landlord, Electric Group, is applying for a shadow premises licence so they can run it, having served an eviction notice on the current tenants last year. Mark Ansell was at that licensing meeting and he joins us live from there now. Mark, what more can you tell us?
Well, the distinctive red neon sign may not be lit up tonight, Amy, but there's no doubting that the Leadmill is deeply embedded in the history, the culture and the music scene of the Steel City, with bands like Pulp, Oasis and Coldplay having played the venue. And anyone in Sheffield will tell you of a night they've had out at the Leadmill. But its future is deeply disputed and hotly disputed between, on the one hand, the tenant, Phil Mills, who's currently in the building, and then also, on the other side, the landlord, Dominic Madden.
And there's nothing more to say, I'll make it hard for myself somehow anyway.
The Leadmill has been an iconic venue in Sheffield for more than 4 decades, but the current operator says its future is in doubt.
Brixton-based The Electric Group bought the building 6 years ago. It operates music venues in London, Bristol and Newcastle. Last year, they served an eviction notice on the current tenants.
Save the Leadmill! Save the Leadmill!
That started a Save the Leadmill campaign, which today gathered outside Sheffield Town Hall. It emerged the operators of the Leadmill offered to pay people expenses of £40 to protest, though the campaigners we spoke to said they didn't take payment.
At the moment, it has the biggest, I think, character in Sheffield as a place goes. It's a little bit raggedy in places and probably needs a little bit of work doing it. But we feel like prices might go up and things won't be the same.
I don't know, would they still be able to use the name Leadmill? So either way, we are losing Leadmill. And we're losing the heart of the Leadmill because the people that run the Leadmill now, they're obviously not going to be able to carry on working there. I just feel like we will lose the Leadmill because it'll be someone new.
The application before members of the subcommittee is made...
The licensing meeting today will decide on whether the owner of the building, Dominic Madden from the Electric Group, will be granted a licence to operate the building alongside the existing one.
The Leadmill have sort of executed a very slick but incredibly misleading and toxic campaign. And they've worried everybody. They've kind of worried people in Sheffield. They worried people in the music business. And we're probably one of the most well-respected music venue operators in the country. And we think that the Leadmill is incredibly important. It's not going anywhere. And that's what we intend to do.
Phil Mills, who operates the Leadmill, turned down several approaches for an interview, and the Leadmill declined to send us a statement. Music promoter Alan Deadman was involved with the Leadmill when it opened in the 1980s. He's accused its present management of running a misguided and deceptive campaign which cruelly exploits fans' loyalty in their fight against eviction.
He's played on the sympathy of Sheffield and punters from outside for this famous venue and really spun them untruths.
The Leadmill campaign has been utterly spirited, and I take my hat off to them for an amazing campaign. But I think they've crossed the line.
A decision on whether the owners of the building are given the licence is expected in the next day or two. If they get the thumbs up, the next stage will be a court hearing next year to determine whether the owner of the Leadmill can actually get into the music venue. Mark Ansell, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
A senior doctor in West Yorkshire has warned that strike action by hospital consultants and junior medics this week will cause significant disruption. The industrial action, which covers 4 days, will see a major escalation in their separate pay disputes when both senior doctors and their junior colleagues will be on strike on Wednesday at the same time. Our health correspondent Jamie Coulson has more.
This week, the NHS is bracing itself for unprecedented walkouts as hospital consultants and junior doctors stage strike action in their disputes over pay. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m, consultants will start their 48-hour strike, which finishes on Thursday morning. Meanwhile, junior doctors walk out at 7 a.m. on Wednesday in a 72-hour strike that finishes on Saturday. It means that on Wednesday, both consultants and junior doctors will be on strike for 24 hours at the same time. Now, while hospitals have made plans to continue providing emergency care, some planned operations and appointments will be disrupted. John Bolton is the Deputy Medical Director at Bradford Teaching Hospitals.
What it means is that we're having to redeploy some of our staff to ensure that our wards and our departments are running safely for our inpatients and for any acute and emergency care. And unfortunately that means that some of our planned elective services such as outpatient clinics or operations procedures are having to be rescheduled.
This will be the third strike by hospital consultants and the sixth by junior doctors. We don't know in advance exactly how many cancellations there will be across the 13 trusts in our region, but during the last 48-hour consultant strike in August, at least 327 procedures were cancelled and 3,480 outpatient appointments were postponed. Meanwhile, the previous 96-hour walkout by junior doctors, which covered a weekend, led to 422 procedures and 3,379 outpatient appointments being postponed. This time, there is also the added complication of junior and senior doctors striking at the same time.
In this situation, it will add to the pressure in the hospital in providing the services because we'll have both professional groups will be away from work at the same time. But they are providing emergency cover, and we are confident that we'll be able to provide safe emergency services for our inpatients and people presenting to the emergency department.
So the advice to patients is to attend appointments unless you've been contacted by the hospital and to use NHS services wisely, as while they will be dealing with emergencies, anyone who isn't urgent may face a long wait.
Some children in Scarborough were unable to go to school today due to flooding. Woodlands Academy was closed, whilst Boroughcliff Primary was only partially open. North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue say they also responded to a number of homes that were flooded in the Stainton area. Some roads were affected too, including the A165 and Scolby Road. This winter's flu and COVID vaccination programme has started today in the region. The programme has been brought forward in response to a new variant of coronavirus. People aged 65 and over have been urged to get their booster jab, as more people have been admitted to hospital with recent viruses over recent weeks. Frontline health workers and people who are vulnerable are also eligible. Now take a look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? It's Niddledale. We all know it's beautiful, don't we? And from next year, it'll become the backdrop to an international triathlon event. The long course weekend will see about 3,000 competitors, from children to elite runners, cycles and swims, obviously, across Niddledale. That's what triathlon is. It's hoped the event will generate £2 million for the local economy. Olivia Richwald sent this report from Pateley Bridge.
The long course triathlon was launched in Tenby in Wales in 2010. It's now spread across Europe and to Australia and New Zealand. The annual Welsh weekend attracts 10,000 participants and more than 30,000 spectators. Now the same event is coming to Pateley Bridge next September.
We're bringing an event that is spread over 3 days. It's one of the only events in the world that has a swimming, cycling, running and triathlete component, so it brings that whole lycra-clad community together over the one weekend, but also has a huge inclusive, because we run from 5k, children's races, you know, long swims, short bikes, long bikes. In Wales, for example, we had 32 members of one family compete this year.
North Yorkshire Council has signed a 3-year deal with the event, following on from hosting major sporting spectacles like the Tour de France Grand Depart and the World Cycling Championships. But it's hoped that this event will come back every year.
I think the ambition for this event is that it will become a signature event for North Yorkshire. So this first year we're considering it a pilot event. We want to sort of cap the numbers initially to make sure we can manage the athletes safely and effectively, but actually what we want is to grow it year on year so that it becomes very much a signature event like the Great Yorkshire Show.
Yorkshire has become synonymous with triathlon thanks in part to brothers Alistair and Johnny Brownlee, and has hosted world-class events before. It's hoped Niddledale will have lots to offer.
There's plenty of hills, so it's going to be a big challenge for people, but I think that's what makes it interesting, and the scenery is just beautiful, so even on a day like today you can get some lovely views, so it'll be fantastic.
The running and cycling events will begin and end at the showground in Pateley Bridge, and the swimming will take place in a nearby reservoir. Although there will be some disruption to residents, it's hoped the economic boost from the sporting tourism will be worth it.
I live in Scarborough and we had disruption with the Grand Depart and Tour de Yorkshire, etc. I think it's only short term, but it's a long-term gain and benefit for the local people and businesses.
The long course weekend takes place here from September the 6th to the 8th next year. Olivia Richwald, BBC Look North, Pateley Bridge.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Let's cross over to Sal with the sport. Warnock's retiring, is it for the second or the third time?
I'm not sure. In his own words, he said into press conference he's had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra. So yes,
that.
We'll start with the news. The Huddersfield Town manager Neil Warnock is to leave the club after their next game. Warnock came out of retirement in February to try and save the Terriers from relegation. He did that and agreed to stay on for another year. But today he announced he'd agreed to make way for a new head coach. Fans will miss him and his press conferences, which are never boring. Here are a few key moments from today.
On Saturday, he was leading the Terriers to a 2-0 victory over Rotherham. But Neil Warnock had already been told his time at Huddersfield was coming to a close. A decision, he says, that wasn't his own.
It's come earlier, you know, sooner than I'd expected. But once they've told me that, you know, I think you've got to move on quickly, really. You can't, I think, any job, not being disrespectful if you're not wanted type of thing, you want to go straight away, don't you?
Having saved the club from relegation last season, he agreed to a 1-year contract extension. But the club has now found a replacement, although they're not saying yet who that is.
And I can't tell you who it is because they haven't told me. So presumably it's somebody I don't like. So ask me when they appoint him, eh?
Warnock is popular with fans and players and says he will miss them.
I'll miss my players. My players have been absolutely fantastic. I think that's what keeps you young as a manager or as a person, really, that involvement. And I've got such a great group of players. I cannot tell you. I will miss them, you know, loads and loads, really.
Huddersfield say they'll announce their new manager by the end of the week. But it's not over yet for Neil Warnock.
I think the biggest thing for me is putting the pride, like I said, back into the club. Everybody's glad they're a Terrier now. It's a wonderful sport, and I've had a great life, but not going out to the pastures just yet.
In the Championship, Leeds United got their second win of the season with a 3-0 victory at Millwall. 2 goals from Joel Pirro and 1 from Jorginho Ruter gave Leeds the win, their first at the Den since 2012. Leeds now move up to 10th in the table. Sheffield Wednesday, though, are still winless. They lost 1-0 to Ipswich. But in League One, Barnsley made it 3 wins in a row with a 2-0 victory against Burton Albion. Devonte Cole got both the goals in front of the home crowd at Oakwell. The first, curled home at 21 minutes. Cole is Barnsley's top scorer, with the Tykes 5th in the table. And there was a first win of the season for Doncaster in League Two with a stoppage time 2-1 victory at Forest Green. The game appeared to be heading towards a stalemate when Ben Close's cross shot, look at this, went in for the win, taking the Rovers off the bottom of the table. Elsewhere in League Two, Bradford drew 1-1 with Harrogate. to Rugby League now, and heartbreak for Wakefield, who have been relegated from Super League after 24 years in the top tier. The game went to a goal point extra time, and it was this drop goal from Lee that consigned Wakefield to a 20-19 loss and to relegation.
You know, ultimately, the table doesn't lie. We've not been good enough all year. You know, and we've got a lot of good, honest chats about it, and then you know, some tough decisions to make moving forward. But one thing you know, I will guarantee is Wakefield Trinity will be back in Super League.
And to catch up with all the weekend Super League action, head to the BBC iPlayer. The Super League show is available from 7 o'clock. And that's your sport for now, Amy.
Gutted for Wakefield Trinity, but they will be back, as he said.
They will be back.
Thank you, Sal. Now, it was a real honour to go to York Racecourse on Friday and meet everyone who was recognised in BBC Radio York's Make a Difference Awards. 32 finalists attended the ceremony. The Make a Difference campaign was originally launched during the pandemic to help people in need, but work has carried on to shine a light on those who go that extra mile for others. Here's just a handful of the brilliant winners.
I was just very blown away by all the work that they've done, and it was just really such a great honour to be even included amongst them.
Feels fantastic, but I think it's testament to everyone that's here. Everyone's a winner, but yeah, it's great to obviously get the award, so thank you.
Amazing, overwhelmed, like it's, yeah, the best thing for our community.
Volunteers are hard to come by, very hard, but it's well worth it, every minute of it.
Congratulations to everyone. There were a few tears in the room as well. Well done all. Now, have you done the bear hunt in Leeds? Well, if you've spent some time in the city over the summer, then you may well have spotted some of these little guys around. Aren't they amazing? The public art trail involved dozens of these bear sculptures, and they waved goodbye last night. That's my favourite, the rhino. Bear rhino. The artwork has been auctioned off next week, with the money going towards Leeds Children's Hospital, and one family are really hoping they'll be able to take home the bear that means a lot to them. Ollie Constable has the story.
They've spent their summer enjoying the sights and sounds of Leeds, but now the 35 bears are on the move. An art trail, similar to others seen in cities across the country, with an aim to raise money for Leeds Children's Hospital charity. They were dotted across the city centre, with businesses and groups adopting them to display. The Bear Hunt is based on the book by Michael Rosen, bringing the iconic children's story to life. From Elvis to Grizzly Stardust, and a nod to the people that make this city great. It's a final parade before they're auctioned off next week.
I think what stands this trail out from other ones is the linkage with the actual patient story. So each bear has a story attached to it. So it's really important. It hammers home that connection between what we're trying to do and raise money for.
You can tell everybody you've got a polar bear. You own a polar bear.
And one of those people is Freddie. Sadly, he knows the Children's Hospital well, having been cared for there since he was just months old. He had a liver transplant and 2 open heart surgeries, and his story is now shared on this striking bear called Polar.
They saved Freddie's life numerous times, but every time they saved his life, they saved ours as well. A 10-year-old, to have a sculpture, named after you in Leeds City Centre, I think it's pretty amazing.
His family have been fundraising to buy Freddie's bear at next week's auction, for it to then live at his school in Ossett.
I'd like to think that everybody leaves me to it and lets me take the bear with me. I think she's a mad woman. She'll raise a lot of money, and all the money obviously goes to a great charity.
Emma's hope is that the bear's final trip will be with them, with lots of money going to support families with children like Freddie. Ollie Constable, BBC Look North.
They were so gorgeous. They really sparkled the city, did those bears. Did you do the hunt, Keely?
Well, my little girl's scared of the story, so
maybe next
So
year.
mine, 10 and 7, they're still terrified of the bear hunt. Don't read it, Mummy!
But yes, the bears in Leeds were lovely. The weather this week, it's going to feel distinctly autumnal. I think we've got some wet and windy weather to come. And actually, we had some thundery rain that brought an awful lot of rain overnight. We even had some flash flooding in places, for example, in Scarborough. So thanks for sending your pictures in. Wentworth Castle here, clouds brewing overhead, and we did have some rain today. So I think if we take a look at our second picture, there will be plenty of these as we head through this week, because we have got a lot of rain in some places over the next few days. So plenty of puddles about. Keep your pictures coming in to the Weather Watchers page, or we're on social media as well, Twitter and Instagram at Keeley.Donovan. So yes, it does look stormy over the next 48 hours, and we've got a warning from the Met Office. There could be some large rainfall totals for the Pennine chain, where the rain could be heavy and persistent over the next couple of days. The rain is down to this area of low pressure. It's actually the remnants of Hurricane Lee, so it's going to bring a few spells of wet and windy weather, still blustery on Wednesday, and then we drag down air from the northwest, so it's turning cooler as we head through Thursday and Friday, but it does remain unsettled. More showery, I think, through the second half of the week. So you can just about make out on the satellite picture this strip of cloud. That was the rain that we had today. We had some sunshine, some brighter skies following on behind, but we've also got a rush of showers pouring in from the west. The breeze will strengthen overnight, and cloud will spread in and increase from the west before the rain arrives later on in the night. Before then, temperatures will drop back to around 10 or 11 degrees. 10 is 50 Fahrenheit. Let's have a quick look at those high water times then, just before 7 o'clock in Whitby and at around about 10 past 7 in Scarborough. So we'll start the day with a lot of cloud. Tomorrow is an unsettled, windy day, spells of rain pushing in from the west. The rain will be heavy and persistent at times, particularly along this Pennine chain where we do have the warning. Not all of the rain will reach eastern areas, but we will still see spells of rain spreading east. I think to the east of high ground, though, we should see some drier spells as well, particularly later on in the day when we may start to see some brighter skies and some sunshine. A fresh to strong southwesterly breeze and temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees. And the rain tomorrow is a warm front, so it is going to be very muggy, humid, with temperatures only falling away a couple of degrees into Wednesday. So we'll start Wednesday morning with temperatures at around 16 or 17 degrees. A cold front sinks southwards on Wednesday, bringing again some heavy spells of rain, cooling down through the week, remaining unsettled and showery. Amy.
Has the heating gone on yet?
Oh, not in our house, no. I daren't even ask.
Keep telling my husband to put another jumper on. We are not having thermostat wars just yet. Not for another month at least. Well, that's it from us. Hannah Gray is here with the late news. Good night.